Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we are on Module 3, Lesson 3, and we are continuing to multiply fractions, but we're using a strategy called cross-canceling, or sometimes it's called just making problems simpler. So I'm going to show you on number 1. If I was to look at this problem, it's already a fraction times a fraction, so I could just multiply it straight across. And I'm getting 9 times 2 is 18, and 10 times 3 is 30. Okay, this fraction is not greater than 1, so I do not need to make it a fraction less than 1. But it is quite large. And we practiced last week making fractions into its simplest form by dividing them by what we call the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor for both of these is 6. So what I would get would be 3/5. And that would be my final answer. Now there's something I could have done beforehand that would have also helped me. So I'm going to do this problem again, but I'm going to use this method called cross-canceling. So in cross-canceling, I look at the numbers that are across from each other, and I make them smaller before I actually solve the problem. So I look at 2 and 10 and I ask myself, what is the greatest common factor? What's the greatest number that can fit in both of these? And both of these, 2 can fit in. So 2 can fit into 2 1 time, and 2 can fit into 10 5 times. Okay, then I also look over here at that cross and I say, what's the greatest common factor for 9 and 3? Well, 3 can fit into 3 and 3 can fit into 9. So 3 is the greatest common factor, and 3 can fit into 3 1 time, and 3 can fit into 9 3 times. So I made my problem simpler before I even did it. So now if I multiplied straight across, I would get 3 times 1 is 3, and 5 times 1 is 5. Now you might ask, why is that even worth doing all that extra work? Well, when I get to a problem like this, yikes, 12 times 18, that's going to be really difficult. I'm going to need to come over here and do some side work. And 8 times 16, that's really difficult as well. So I can try to make the problem simpler by doing this strategy of cross-canceling before I even start. So what is the greatest common factor of 16 and 12? Well, we could list our factors. That's what we did before in our warm-ups. We could list our factors for 12, which would be 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Some of you might be at a spot because you know your facts so well that you see it. I know 4 can fit into both of them. Is there a larger one that can? I'm going to say no. So I'm going to say 4 can fit into 12 3 times. And 4 can fit into 16 4 times, because 4 times 3 is 12 and 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, let's look at this one. 8 and 18. What number? Well, I'm going to think of my factors for 8. 1 and 8. Does 8 fit into that? Nope. What about 2 and 4? 4 doesn't, but 2 does. So 2 is the greatest common factor. So 2 can fit into 18 9 times, and 2 can fit into 8 4 times. So I've made my problem simpler before I multiply straight across. So 3 times 9, now I could do that in my head, and 4 times 4 is 16. So simplifying it made me able to solve it in my head. Now when I see this, I still see that it is a greater than 1 fraction. So I want to use in and out to make it a fraction less than 1. So if I have 2, I can make 0 groups of 16. 0 groups of 16 is 2. If I have 27, I can make 1 group of 16. which leaves me with 11 left. So my answer is 1 and 11/16. So that is how I solved that. Okay, so let's try some of these together. Okay, so for our first one, again, 33 times 14 would be really large. So we want to see if we can make it smaller. So what number is a factor of both of these? Well, we could list them for 21. We could come over here and list them and say 1 times 21, 2 times nothing, 3 times 7, 4 times nothing, 5 times nothing, 6 times nothing, and 7's a repeat. So those are our factors for 27. I'm sorry, for 21. 21 is not a factor of 33. 7 is not a factor of 33, but 3 is. So 3 is our GCF. So 3 times 11 is 33, and 3 times 7 is 21. Okay, let's look here. This one we might just be able to see it. So this one I can see that 7 is going to be my GCF, because 7 times 1 is 7 and 7 times 2. So now we've made our problem a lot simpler before we multiply straight across. So 11 times 2 is 22, and 1 times 7 is 7. And now, because this is a greater than 1 fraction, because my numerator is greater than my denominator, let's use in and out. And we get 22 can make 3 groups of 7 with 1 left over. So our is 3 and 1/7, because remember our denominators stay the same. Okay, let's do our next one. So we have 9 and 18. So what is the GCF? What's the greatest number that fits into both of those? And it's going to be 9. So 9 times 1 is 9, and 9 times 2 is 18. Okay, let's check these. Okay, what's the greatest factor of 6 and 42? Well, I always look at this one. So it's 1 and 6. Is 6 a factor of 42? Yes, because 6 times 7. So that's going to be 7, and that's 1. So our answer is 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 7 is 14. And that is already a fraction less than 1. Okay, let's go on. Our next one, we have 15 and 45. Okay, so 15 is actually a factor of 45, because 15 times 3 is 45. So we're going to say 15 is our GCF, and 15 can fit in 15 one time, and then 15 times 3 is 45. So there's 2 ways you can look at it. You can say, could it fit in this many times, or what times that? Okay, what about 22 and 4? Well, 4 is 1 times 4, but 4 is not a factor of this. And 2 times 2, so it must be 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 11 is 22. So now we can do 11 times 3 is 33, and 1 times 2 is 2. And if we do our in and out to make it a not greater than 1 fraction, we would get, let's see, I am getting, I got 16 with 1 left over, and my denominator stays the same. So it's 16 and a half. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're only going to do one more. So let's see. 28 and 35. If you can't see it in your mind, you could write out the factors for the smaller one. So 1 times 28, that's not a factor. 2 times 14, 14's not a factor. 3 times nothing. 4 times 4 times, oh, I made a mistake, sorry. 4 times 7. 7 is a factor. So we found our answer 7, and that's the largest so far. So we'll take 7 times 5 is 35, and 7 times 4 is 28. And for this one, I can see this one, it's 3. So that's going to be 1 and 2. So we get 1 times 5 is 5, and 4 times 2 is 8. And that is already a less than 1 fraction, so we can leave it. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, your homework tonight is the back side of this. You have 8 problems to try on your own. Have a great night.